Welcome to the Lessons in Life, Love, and Leadership podcast with your hosts, Kelly and Cheryl Henderson. We chat about a variety of topics. Get ready. We're about to go in.
All right. Welcome, everybody, to the next episode of Lessons in Life, Love, and Leadership. Man, we really are so grateful for all of the support that you all have been giving us, all of the kudos and feedback and sharing. And we just want you to continue to do that. If you haven't done so, make sure that you like, subscribe, and share on all of the platforms. We're continuing to roll it out to try to get it to multiple mediums. So what's going on, Miss Lady? How are you today?
I'm doing well.
Okay.
Excited about our conversation tonight.
Okay. That sounds like a setup.
Well, let's just take a step back. So episode 0, we talked about, people's perception of us and how we just had a conversation about what it meant to be a power couple. Then we really zoomed into what brings life to a relationship or leadership in leadership, life, or love through drivers, and then what sucks the life out of
Those drainers.
Yeah, we talked about drivers and drainers. And so today we're going to zoom in to leadership. And I'm super excited. So for our listeners, that tonight we're going to get to know a little bit more about one of my favorite leaders, whom I have a tremendous amount of love and respect for.
Jesus Christ.
Second to Jesus is going to be none other than my amazing husband, Kelly D. Henderson.
Oh, no. Okay.
How you feeling about it?
Honestly, and I'm just going to be super transparent. I am not really one of those people who shares a lot. Yeah. So this is kind of being pulled out of me. So, I need the audience and the listeners to just kind of bear with me. I'm more of a private and reserved individual. And I think about it like this. If I was in the band or in a band, I would be the bass player. Oftentimes you don't see the bass player. He's the guy that's in the background, just holding it down, keeping the rhythm going, but you feel it. It's not somebody that you see that's flash like the lead singer or the lead guitar player or anything like that. So, I'm stepping out of my comfort zone just a little bit, and we're going to see what this looks like.
I love it. And so, of course, as a former music teacher, the bass is essential, even though it's not a flashy role without, when the bass is missing. True. And I actually think that aligns with your leadership, right? Like, you're private, but you leave a lasting impression everywhere you go. And so I'm excited for people to get a chance to learn some of the wonderful lessons that I've learned because I'm up close and personal. So to kick us off, so basically I want to, those of you that are listening to think of it as this, tonight Kelly's going to tell his leadership story. And Brene Brown, one of my favorite authors and researcher, she wrote this about storytelling. Story stewardship means honoring the sacred nature of story, the ones we share and the ones we hear, and knowing that we've been entrusted with something valuable or that we have something valuable that we should treat with respect and care. So as you're listening tonight, I want you to take this, or today, whenever you're listening to this episode, here's another thing from Brene Brown. She says, we are good stewards of the stories we hear by listening, being curious, affirming, and believing people when they tell us how they experience something. And my last quote from Brene Brown is this. In her book, Dare to Lead, it says this: when we have the courage to walk into our story and own it, we get to write the ending.
Okay.
All right.
Right.
So let's hop in. So tonight, for our listeners, as you're listening, I'm just going to ask Kelly some questions, and then he's just going to share as he feels comfortable.
And let me go for the audience. Normally, we go over our notes. She was like, we're not doing it. And she was like, I'll let you know what we're going to do when we get there. And I was like, oh, no, this is a setup, like for real. So, yeah, bear with me, as we try to walk through this and see where it lands.
All right, here we go. So here's the first question. Thinking about how you got into leadership. So I know, go way back because you've been in leadership over 20 years. How did you get into the seat of being the leader?
I go back to Macedonia Missionary Baptist Church.
Okay, that's way back.
The Sunshine Band.
Okay.
You know. And I'm dead serious. You know, it's one of those situations and things where my mother, rest her soul, was very instrumental in pushing her children out to the forefront. So, you know, I didn't know, and I don't think it was even predetermined, but I ended up the president of the Sunshine Band.
Come on, President.
8, 9 years old, you know, singing heroes during Easter and, you know, what's the other little songs you sing in the Sunshine Band? You know, you the music teacher.
Heroes was a fan favorite.
Yeah, but, you know, it just kind of started there. And, you know, a lot of people probably can relate that a lot of leadership things happen in church. Like you learn how to public speak by doing Easter speeches and having to lead the welcome and do all of the things, especially in African American church, you know. So just kind of moving through that and, you know, other things that ended up happening in my life, like just kind of being a troop leader of my Boy Scout troop and certain things that just kind of happened along the way that I didn't necessarily set myself up for, but they just kind of organically happened. So leadership is just one of those things that just naturally fell into my lap. Even goes back to my mentor, who was my third grade teacher. He often reminds me of the type of rambunctious young man that I was at 9 years old in his classroom. And I was often, you know, being punished for it just because I was vocal and always speaking my mind and saying things and telling people what wasn't fair. So if it was leadership, I don't think that I was doing it. I think I was just acting organically and just being the individual and the person that I am. So if you want to talk about the origin and the start of where it was there at Macedonia and at Valentine and the other things that I did, you know, coming up as a child.
So it sounds like what I'm hearing from you, that your leadership skills were being honed from 8 and up. Yeah. And it wasn't something that you sought after. It was kind of something that just flowed from you. Right. Obviously, bless Miss Rosa, God rest her soul, she saw leadership on you. And I love that you said she pushed you all forward and pulled it out. And it is very common in the African American church. Like that is your first platform where you are honing all of those skills, which it makes sense, the career path that you've kind of landed on. So tell us about a couple of instances or roles that you've held as a leader. Just walk us through your leadership path.
Sure. So from a workplace, I've always kind of been placed in management roles, even in high school, working at various restaurants and entertainment complexes and things like that. I was often the shift manager or the shift leader, or if the head manager was leaving, I would be placed in charge of a bunch of other 14, 15, 16-year-olds. You know, that type of stuff. And it never really occurred to me that was something that I was going to actually dive into. Just kind of going into college, I went on the path before I became an educator that I wanted to be an entrepreneur, or I wanted to be the CEO of a Fortune 500 company. So that's what led me to actually go into business and marketing management as my major when I was in school. So after graduation, I soon thereafter joined a shipping company here in the city, and actually had an opportunity to go through their management leadership program that just kind of identified people who wanted to go into management. And as funny as it seems, one of the first courses that you had to do to pre-qualify to get into the management program was this program called Is Management for Me? So it was just this big question, but you had to go through all of these different modules. And as you pass through the modules, it talked about a different element, like your communication style, your leadership style, whether you are a reactive leader or a passive leader, or, you know, what type of person you were, a situational leader or reactive leader, those different types of things. And yeah, after going through that program, I was fast tracked through the program and also ended up becoming one of the youngest people in leadership for that company.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was a lot. You know, I learned a lot at a very young age about what leadership is and what leadership is not.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so you led in as a teenager.
Yes.
Working and going to school. I remember those years. Y'all may not know this, but when we were in high school, we went to high school together. Kelly, literally, y'all had bow ties and a briefcase to school in high school. Meanwhile, on the ranch, the rest of us had on T-shirts and jeans, but that budding leader was actually modeling for us. He showed up for business. And he dressed like it. He looked like it. And we were like, you got 10 kids? Where you going? But it
I had
now,
work to do.
Clearly. And now
it was stuff that I, you know, just kind of picked up.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So you led in the business sector. And then, of course, you transitioned into the education sector where you were teacher, assistant principal, and then, of course, school leader, principal, right? And then a regional role. And then now you are a COO of an amazing educational organization. So just take a step back, zoom all the way out. What was your biggest obstacle that you faced? And you don't have to give us details, but like, what was a challenge that you faced in either of these sectors? You can pick what you want and share what makes sense, because there are some people that are listening today that are aspiring leaders or in the thick of it. And so can you kind of share like what was an obstacle and how you overcame it?
Yeah, 100%. It goes really all the way back to the management training program that I was in for that company that I talked about. So you had to go through what they call, it was, I don't remember the exact term for it, but there was like this final interview that you had to go through, which was a day-long interview of situations and scenarios and all of these different things that you would be put into or seemingly to be faced with or simulated as a manager for this organization, right? So as a young 20-something-year-old whippersnapper that think that he had it all together and, you know, always had the answers and all these other different things, there was a question that was asked to me, and in my mind's eye, I felt like you always had to have an answer. But this was a question about something that I had absolutely no clue about or any context around that particular issue. And, you know, I call myself just going to go in there and give a bunch of word salad and filibuster my way and sound all articulate and you know, do the thing and just kind of have all of these gestures that's going to make it seem like I'm the smartest guy in the room. Well, the gentleman that was in the interview, and again, he is gone as well, rest his soul, stopped me in the middle of my rambling because I was going on for about 5 minutes, and he just sat there with this look on his face and let me go on and go on and go on and go on. And he said, in the middle of my work, stop. And I was kind of taken aback because I'm giving the answer, and I thought that I was going to give the answer. And because this is a family-friendly show.
You got to filter.
Yeah, I got to filter. He just said, I need you to stop BSing. And I was like, what? I sat up straight in my chair because I didn't expect anybody to, you know, say those words to me in an interview. This is an interview, a whole interview. Oh, and I said, sir, he said, stop BSing. And I paused for a second. He said, look, I know that you don't know the answer to the question that I'm asking you because it's designed to be that way. If you don't know the answer, just say, I don't know. There's nothing wrong with saying, I don't know, or let me get back to you. So say it. And I sat there like stunned. Man, my hands were dripping sweat.
Oh, wow.
Water was dripping off of my hands. And I just said, I don't know. He said, good. Now we can move on.
Wow.
So the moral of the story is that, the biggest leadership lesson in that is that you're not going to know everything and every answer. Mm-hmm. And it's okay to place yourself in a situation of vulnerability in front of your leadership team or the people that you are leading. In fact, they will appreciate it more because a lot of times you don't always have to be the sage on the stage. You can be the guide on the side and lock arms with people and say, hey, we're going to go tackle this thing together. We may not know everything, but you may know a piece of it. I may know a piece of it, and then we'll accomplish it together versus I have to be the one that's dun-dun-dun, like Superman, standing there giving all of the answers. And it puts people off, especially, being in a situation where you're around a leader and nobody else knows anything. You got all of the answers and everybody else is not as knowledgeable as you are. And it's off-putting and it places people in a situation to where they don't want to work for you.
Oh, wow. First of all, that is so good. And thank you for your vulnerability and transparency.
Yeah, man.
That is incredible. I can't imagine.
It's some other stories that folded out of that, but I'll leave it there.
Wow. Yeah. But what I'm hearing you say in that moment, that was an obstacle. It was also a great lesson. And from my vantage point of watching your leadership, I can see why you developed the teams that you have over the years that we've been together. Because I heard you say, like, God on the side, not sage on the stage, which I absolutely love. And then you're like, not being the smartest person in the room. But one thing that you do as a leader that I see is you surround yourself with people that have strengths in areas that may not necessarily be yours. Can you talk a little bit about your thinking behind that move?
Well, it's probably an outgrowth of that traumatizing situation that I had several years ago. As most of y'all know, I transitioned from the corporate sector into education really by accident, but, it was by divine calling. But what I tend to do is I play to my areas of opportunity. So I do that by hiring or bringing people on in that are stronger in those particular areas than I am. And I tend to give them that lane to run. So, it's like I'm the orchestrator and I sit back and I work what my strong suit is. And then I allow the people who come into my team who are strong in those particular areas that I may not be strengthened in to run their lane. And even if I am strengthened in that, I still empower them to thrive in that particular area just because it makes for good sense. It kind of goes back to that whole Jethro principle of allowing people to manage and handle smaller issues while you handle the bigger tasks because like the Bible says, you're going to wear yourself out. So, I learned early on, but I don't think I was really introduced to the Jethro principle of things until, maybe I started going through some of the biblical leadership training that I've had an opportunity to go through. And I was like, man, that makes a whole lot of sense. So, just doing that has been great. And it's been pivotal to the success that we've been able to enjoy as the various teams that I've had the opportunity to lead.
Awesome. I always say this about you, that you make things, people, and places better.
I don't know about all
It's
of that.
true, because I'm living witness. You've definitely made me better. As a leader, I get to watch you and grow just from you. I love the way you lead. Sorry, y'all, we're having a personal moment. Let me get back to the script.
Oh, it's all good. They get to see the things.
But I think
it's life, love, and leadership.
it is, and it's love right now. Yeah. But we're going to get back to leadership. But I think the beautiful thing, Kelly, as I'm listening to what you just shared, like not only from what was an obstacle from that grew the way you approach leading, the way you strategically build teams, that you empower other leaders that come in and work alongside you. Not once did you say I, you said we. So your mindset is collaborative. And then I know a lot of people work for leaders that are micromanagers. And that means they don't trust the people that they hire. At least that's what it means to me.
Sure.
Or maybe they've had people that haven't done what they've been called or asked to do. But you said you empower your people, you play to their strengths. And then even if it's a strength of yours, you allow them to thrive. And I've seen that firsthand.
Because people don't leave organizations, especially ones that they love. They leave the leader.
It's true.
Because they're trying to get away from that, be it a toxic or micromanaged situation. All of that plays into the decision for people to leave an organization.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. There's so many more things we could talk about, but let's go ahead and get to the next part. So we talked about your leadership pathway from the Sunshine Band to being a principal and a leader in a great organization currently. Then we talked about an obstacle that you faced and how that obstacle shaped and kind of refined how you show up as a leader. We've also talked about you building teams and empowering people. So now you kind of mentioned this a little bit, but who is a either leader or thought leader that you admire that has kind of shaped and helped influence the way you currently lead now?
There's so many people that are out there, but I'll defer, because if I start calling names, then I got to call all the names, because so I'd be listening to the podcast and be like, oh, you didn't mention me, so what am I, chopped liver? And all of the stuff that I've invested in you. So, I just kind of keep it there. One of the best leaders that I know of right now is, and I take it to a sports analogy, is Mike Tomlin, the amazing, dynamic, third only coach of the 6-time world champion Pittsburgh Steelers.
Oh, goodness. Don't put comments, people.
Yeah, 6 rings. Get your rings up.
6.
So, but I love his leadership style just as a person, just because he is so dynamic and direct. And you can tell that, he really studies people and he knows how to motivate folks. I even, in a leadership development workshop that I led a couple of weeks ago with my team, I referenced that. And, one of his major phrases that he says is, the standard is the standard, meaning that you as a person, if you set the standard in an organization, you don't compromise for that. It is the standard, and you stick to it no matter what, good, bad, or otherwise. But he does some amazing press conferences. I go back in and listen to his press conferences just to kind of see how he handles pressure under fire. He is always giving credit to the opposing team. Even when they're in a loss, he still gives them credit. He is always talking about the people coming in and doing the small things that help to move the organization forward. Meaning, case in point, going to another sports analogy, talks about the weighty downs. And what that is these key situational downs in a ball game that determines whether you win or lose. And that happens in organizations. You have weighty downs in organizations, meaning that there are certain times in the year or in the quarter or in the scope of the work that you're doing that what you do matters, meaning that everybody has the fire on all cylinders, meaning that everybody does their job, which goes back to what I'm telling you, or what you asked me about putting people in places to run their lane. If you're not running your lane, then that means that we're going to all crumble. So if you don't run your lane, then that means that you and I need to have a crucial conversation about why you're not doing your job. And if I need to do your job, then that means that I don't need you.
That is true.
Right.
That is true. Wow, that's so good. So good. So good. So many nuggets from that, who
Yep.
a thought leader that influences your leadership. And I
Yeah,
love that
great guy.
you've used it, and I've seen it. You allow people to run their lane. You've had those crucial conversations. You've put the right person in that lane, and then you again make things, people, and organizations better. So
Well, that just goes into my philosophy about being a transformational servant leader. And, I roll up my sleeves beside the people and lift the organization and move it forward. And there's nothing that I wouldn't ask anybody to do that I'm not willing to do myself.
I've seen it. All right. Well, we are getting to the end of our time. We could do so much more. I want our two big questions. Number one, what's a book that you want to share with us tonight on this episode that you've used or read that you think would be great for an aspiring leader or a current leader that needs to recharge? What's a book?
Good. Oldie but goodie. This is one that really helped me when I got into my educational leadership transformational work, and that is Good to Great by Jim Collins. And we can go in and talk about all of the nuggets. You see all of the bookmarks that are there. That means that I've read it a lot. But everybody talks about Jim Collins, but the only thing that they look at is that, you got to have the right people on the bus. And we get that,
right.
but there are just so many great stories in this book about organizations that just has so much potential, but it was that one thing or those 2 or 3 critical areas that just kept them from moving from good to great. So, this is a must read for anybody that is trying to get into leadership. And I don't know what printing this is, but this is the one that I usually refer to. But also as a comparative book or a companion book, I've got into the work of Tim Grover, who was Michael Jordan and I believe Kobe Bryant's personal trainer, and a lot of other people. And this is called Relentless.
So good.
And it goes from good to great to unstoppable. So I would ask that anybody who is worth their salt or worth what they're doing in leadership, get one or both. Please make sure that you get either one. Start with this one first, but then go here. And you can get it on Audible. You can get it on Amazon, all of the different book
Barnes and Noble.
Stores are going out of favor, man.
Okay, keep going.
We got like one Barnes and Noble left here in the city, period. Right?
Keep going.
But keep going. But Good to Great and Relentless are 2 books that I'm really going back in and making sure that I'm using it to help to shape the work that I do now.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, what's the saying? Readers are leaders, and leaders are readers.
That's right.
All right. Well, first of all, Kelly, thank you for your vulnerability and transparency and allowing us to learn from you. Listeners, I hope you gleaned something that, number one, you were listening, that you are curious. In the comments, be affirming and believe what he's experienced. And hopefully you can learn something as you grow as a leader.
Man, look, thank you for stretching me. I think you've kind of come in and embodied my mom's spirit just by pushing folks out there. That's why one of your middle names is Rose, because you like Rosa. Awesome. Love you, Mom.
All right.
It's all good. Thank you for checking out this episode of Lessons in Life, Love, and Leadership. We just want you to like, share, and subscribe, and make sure that you put it out there for all the world to see. And just thank you for allowing me to share a piece of myself today. And we'll just continue to keep this work going. So see you guys later.
All right. Bye-bye.